Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. So this morning, we're going to talk about our emotions. And I can feel the excitement and the anticipation building already. So how many people here have ever allowed your emotions to get the best of you and said or did something out of anger that you regretted later? Anybody? And so how many people have ever had a lot of emotional stuff come up for you, and there was so much of it you felt at the end of the week emotionally drained and emotionally exhausted? And how many people have ever had a difficult time expressing your feelings and your emotions? Anybody? So when you think of the word emotion or emotions, what kind of feelings do you get? What kind of connotation? Do you get some warm and fuzzies? Or is it a little more serious or even heavy? Sometimes when it comes to our emotions, sometimes our emotions can be a bit scary and intimidating for us. They can feel uncomfortable. They can feel a little bit overwhelming. Sometimes I think we're afraid of our emotions. Sometimes we don't like to feel them, and sometimes we don't like to even hear other people sharing some deep emotional stuff. I saw a quote that says, "Men are like mascara. They run at the first sight of emotion." And I know that's not men in this room. I heard that there are men somewhere that relates to, but I know it's not Unity guys. In a study they did, that they asked the question, do you have a hard time recognizing or identifying your own emotions or your own feelings? And 69.9% said yes, that they had a hard time and struggle with recognizing and identifying their own emotional feelings. And 23.9% said they sometimes struggle with recognizing what they're feeling emotionally, and only 3.4% said they didn't have a problem with it. 2.8% had no idea. But that's 93% of individuals surveyed agree that they have a tough time identifying what they're feeling. Kind of reminds me of this guy, this prosecutor in this court case, and he's questioning a witness who's a farmer, and he said, "Farmer Brown, at the scene of the accident, did you not tell the police officer," and I quote, "I never felt better in my life?" And the farmer said, "Yes, that's right." And the lawyer said, "Well, then how is it that you are now claiming that you were seriously injured when my client's car hit and ran into your wagon?" And the farmer said, "Well, let me explain. When your client's car hit my wagon, it tossed me and my dog and my horse and the wagon, and we all rolled and we all got banged up pretty bad. And then when the police officer arrived at the scene, I watched there. I was laying in pain as he walked over to the horse, and then he looked at the horse and saw what condition he was in, and he shot him. And then I watched as he walked over to my dog, and he looked at my dog, and then he shot him. Then he walked over to me, and he said, 'How you feeling?' And under the circumstances, I thought it was in my best interest to say, 'I never felt better in my life.'" So, wow, 3 people this week clapping, nice. It's been 1 for the last month. So emotions, as a human being, we have all kinds of emotions and feelings. We are literally experiencing an ocean of emotion and a sea of feelings every day, from exhilaration and joy and happiness to despair, to betrayal, to anger and hatred. The range of human emotions is absolutely incredible. And what's even more incredible is how sometimes we're not in tune or not willing to feel and acknowledge and connect with those feelings. And while it isn't easy, I believe that our feelings and our emotions are hugely important in understanding ourselves, in figuring out what's working and not working, what needs to be healed, what needs to be changed, what needs to be shared. You know, emotions are very, very powerful and important things that help us understand life, that create a greater sense of self-awareness, that when we are connected to them and learn how to manage them well, that we really can create more intimacy within ourselves and among the people that are in our lives. So the question is, what are emotions? You know, emotions are basically a thought linked with a sensation, a thought linked with a feeling. You know, emotions are the connection between the mind and the body. Emotions gives us information and shows us the exchange of energy between the mind and the body and the experiences that we are having in our lives. Our emotions are really a reflection of how we interact and respond and perceive and experience all of life. And the thing about it is, we purposely sometimes don't want to experience some of those emotions. We would rather stuff them, bury them, pretend we don't have them. And the thing is, we think that protects us, and yet it actually hurts us even more. Stuffing, denying, and burying negative emotions or difficult emotions actually cause us more pain. Listen to what it says in the book of Proverbs. It says this: anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down. And we could say bitterness in a man's heart weighs it down. Shame in a man's heart weighs it down. Guilt in a man's heart weighs it down. Anger weighs it down. Carrying the past weighs it down. Resentment weighs it down. Here's another one in Proverbs 15:18. It says, those who are hot-tempered stir up strife, but those who are slow to anger calm contention. And basically what these two scriptures are saying is that life has a lot of emotions, and some of them are painful and not pleasant. Some of them are very uncomfortable. But we are the ones that have the power to decide whether it's going to weigh us down and create strife and block us from feeling peace and joy and happiness, or we are the ones who can be liberated by them, can be freed by them, to open our lives to feel more joy. So I ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how well do you process and deal with your emotions, particularly your negative ones? And how many people would say that you could probably do a better job utilizing your negative and all your emotions to live a better life? Anybody? Okay, wow, that's about 10. This is fantastic. So we're in the third week of our 4-week series, which is our 30-day challenge called Game On. And this is a challenge that we've got to take our lives up to another level. Because I bet every one of us could admit we could probably do a better job in taking care of our physical bodies, our minds, our emotions, and our spirit. Every one of us wants a better life. You know, Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center's motto is, we inspire people to live better lives. And this 30-day challenge is to inspire you to live a better life. And the way to live a better life is to have a better foundation, a physical foundation, a mental foundation, an emotional foundation, and a spiritual foundation. I was reading an article this week, and it says the most important part of a house is its foundation. Because when the foundation is strong, that house, you can build it higher, and it will last longer. And the fact is, as physical beings, mental beings, emotional beings, and spiritual beings, we need a foundation of physical fitness, mental fitness, emotional, and spiritual fitness to build a better life, to support our goals, our dreams, our aspirations, whether it's in a better relationship or better financial situation or to be the top salesperson, whatever it is you want to do in your life, you need a strong foundation. So this 30-day challenge is about kicking it up a notch and building a stronger foundation to build a better life and a more fulfilling life. And it's a simple challenge. Every single day, we're asked to do 60 minutes, 20 minutes on physical activity, physical fitness, 10 minutes on mental activity, doing affirmations or reading inspirational material, 10 minutes on emotional stuff, we'll talk about that in a second, about releasing, journaling, letting go. And then the fourth one is just 20 minutes of meditation, of feeding your spirit and your soul. And the question is, would you be willing to invest 60 minutes a day to help create a foundation for you to build a better life? So today we're going to look at the aspect, to get our game on, to look at how can we become more emotionally fit. One thing that stops us from being more emotionally healthy and more emotionally fit is that we tend to resist our feelings. We tend to resist and deny and pretend that we're not hurt. Anybody ever say anything to you and a little hurtful, and then they say, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, oh, good. I'm good. I'm all right. Everything's cool." Everything's not cool, but we like to pretend that because we don't sometimes want to acknowledge, not just to others, but even ourselves, that we're hurting, that we're sad, that we're feeling pain or disappointment. Another aspect of how we sometimes resist our feelings is that we sometimes like to label feelings as wrong and bad. I shouldn't feel that way, because it's a way to stop us from actually dealing with our emotions. I've done a lot of funerals as a minister, and one thing I find strangely consistent is that sometimes someone will give a eulogy, and in the middle of their eulogy, they'll break down and cry, and the first words out of their mouth is, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Like that was something bad to share an emotion of sadness and tears at a funeral. And we shouldn't be surprised. We grow up with things like big boys don't cry. We hear things about stuffing our emotions and being more strong and stoic. And yet, one of the things we need to do is to begin to accept emotions are an important part of our lives. Remember the book of Ecclesiastes? For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And what it's saying is all this range of emotions are an important part of being a human being, of experiencing life. Emotions make life rich and deep. Could you imagine if we had no emotions? Can you imagine if we just had a world of like Mr. Spocks, that was just logical and thinking that way? Emotions is what makes life deep and exciting and passionate and joyful. And it includes all of them, not just some of them. And it's a willingness to allow ourselves to feel all of them. What's the shortest verse in the Bible, anybody? Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Jesus was angry. Jesus was disappointed. He was overwhelmed. "Father, if you can, take this cup from me." He said, "I am grieved even until death." He had the whole range of human emotions. You know what happens when we resist and deny feelings? They become more powerful to control our lives. Subconsciously, but they control our lives by denying them. Because what you resist persists. And sometimes we get really disappointed and upset when life doesn't go well. Even though Jesus said, in this life there'll be trials and tribulations, he said there's going to be some stuff. Yet we're shocked and surprised when life doesn't go well, like thinking that life should always go my way. I looked in the Bible for that scripture that said, in this life things will always go your way. People will believe exactly the way you want, and everything will go smoothly. I looked for it. I tried to write it in, but the fact is, in life, we're going to have losses and hurt and heartaches and disappointment. So we shouldn't resist it or pretend like there's something wrong with the universe because some of these things happen. It's a part of this experience of life. But what the worst thing I think we do with regard to our feelings is we judge ourselves for feeling our feelings. I remember a few years back, I would have moments of sometimes just being a bit sad and being spiritual or being a minister. Then I started feeling bad that I felt sad. And then I got mad that I felt bad that I felt sad. And then I started to blame myself for being mad that I felt bad about being sad. And then I felt shame about my blame that I felt mad about feeling bad about being sad. And the point I'm making is, look how we compound negative energy by being negative about the negative emotions we have. Does this make sense? We're doing some bad stuff to ourselves unnecessarily, judging ourselves for feeling certain feelings when they're just feelings. And feelings that are important, that are trying to show us and trying to help us live a better life. I tell you, what is so good is these days, when I feel sad, I can just accept I'm feeling sad, without throwing a lot of extracurricular, unnecessary pain and suffering on myself. I can just feel my feelings. And there's a point at which we all need to come to a place of acceptance, of realizing emotions are a part of life. In fact, they're actually a good part of life. They're an important part of life. They create depth and richness into our life. They teach us. But we have to be willing to just accept and not resist anymore, to allow ourselves to honor where we're at. I love page 417 in the big book, and it's all about it. It says, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. That if I'm struggling in life, it's because I think some person or situation is unacceptable to me, and I'll never be able to find peace and serenity until I accept that things are exactly the way they're supposed to be for this moment. So my question is, what are you having a hard time accepting? What in your life are you resisting or fighting against or railing against or judging yourself to feel? And can you get to a place of just accepting whatever emotions are going on with you? Because I guarantee you that alone will begin to bring a sense of peace, a sense of calmness. I accept all my emotions. Let's say it together. I accept all my emotions. Can you just take a deep breath? My emotions are good. Together. My emotions are good. My emotions are important. My emotions are helping me to live a better life. Together. My emotions are helping me to live our better. I am willing to feel all my emotions. Together. I am willing to feel all my emotions. I accept all my emotions. Together. I accept all my emotions. And so the fact is, if we want to have a more fulfilling life, if we want a stronger emotional foundation, we got to be okay to just accept the emotions that are happening in our lives, to not reject and resist them, but to allow ourselves just to accept and acknowledge that it's an important part of life and not be afraid of them. The next one is, besides accepting, you got to be willing to feel it. And sometimes we don't want to feel negative emotions. We don't want to feel painful emotions at all. You know, sometimes we just keep everything bottled up. We stuff it and bury it, thinking everything's going to be cool with it. It's almost like, you ever had a closet that's like so full you're scared to open it up? Because I think we're like that with our own feelings. So much stuff going on, we're afraid that things will fall out and we'll just fall apart. And you know what happens is when we don't feel our feelings, that energy stays stuck in us as unresolved hurt and pain. And then something will happen that triggers that pain. And someone will say or do something, and it'll trigger a huge reaction. And why? Because there was pain in there that it triggered that never got resolved. Because I really believe you got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel it and let that energy move through you. But what do? We stuff it and bury it, and that energy stays stuck in us. That unresolved pain stays in us for a long time. You know, there was a patient talking to his therapist, and the patient said, "All you ever do is ask me about my feelings." And the therapist says, "And how does that make you feel?" And so, see, sometimes I don't think we got enough training in school and in life to just acknowledge our feelings, to just let ourselves feel what we are actually feeling. See, we tend to do two things with negative feelings. We either avoid them and stuff them, which creates unresolved pain in us, or we resent and relive and keep dwelling them, which keeps them alive. Either way is not the best, but in the middle is the healthiest. And that is to feel and process and let that energy or that emotion move through us. Remember in the 23rd Psalm, it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Notice it doesn't say, "Yea, though I walk around the shadow of death." Yea, though I close my eyes and run as fast as I can through the shadow of death. Yea, do I pretend that there is no valley of the shadow of death. Yea, do I pitch a tent and camp out and hang out there. It doesn't say that. It says to walk through, to walk through. See, emotions are energies, and you know what? The healthiest thing is for them to pass through us, to move through us. Because to stuff and deny or dwell keeps it alive and it blocks peace and joy and happiness. And so my question is, are we willing to feel and let it pass through? I remember when I took yoga a few years back, they had to make us go in an uncomfortable position. Then they say, breathe through it. And that's really true. We have more fear about a feeling than the actual feeling itself. To feel sadness and say, I'm feeling sadness now, and let sadness just move through your body is the healthiest way to deal with it. Or anger, or resentment, or fear, or anything else. You know, just let yourself feel it and let that energy just pass through you. I remember once I was having some hand surgery and the nurse had to inject my finger with a needle. And then she said, oh, just breathe through the pain. Oh, and I was thinking, that's easy for you to say. You got a needle sticking in my finger. But it's really true. To breathe through that, to not be afraid of it. And for us to feel it, we need to acknowledge it. And one of the things that I do to try and get some of the energy out is I journal. But sometimes you got to ask yourself a question in your journaling. Is to ask yourself the question is, what am I feeling right now? Or where in my life am I struggling? Or what am I feeling sad about? Or what's really going on in my relationship? How am I really feeling about my job? What part of me still needs to be healed? That sometimes just journaling and getting it acknowledged is a really, really important thing. Listen to what it says in the book of Ephesians. It says this, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your anger. You know what I like what it says? It says, be angry and do not sin. What it's saying is, feel those feelings. You don't have to do anything crazy about it, but just feel it, because that's the healthiest thing that you can do. And so my question is, everybody think of a negative emotion you got in your life. If you don't have one, I could lend you one of mine. And so I just want you to think about it for a second. And I want you to feel that as emotion as you can. Maybe it's frustration or anger or betrayal or fear. I just want you to feel it. And just take a deep breath. And just let yourself feel it. Let it pass through your body. Feel what the sensation of that feeling is. And realize it's just a feeling. It isn't you. It's just a feeling that you're experiencing. And it's okay. Deep breath into that feeling again. And as you let yourself feel this feeling and breathe into it, let's breathe love and light into this feeling. Breathe. Again, one more breath, love and light into this feeling. And just love that feeling. Send light to that feeling. And just let that feeling be. Let it pass through you. One more deep breath. And just let yourself feel whatever your feeling is. Amen. Because it's just a feeling. And it's important for us to feel our feelings. Now here's another important thing is, we're only talking about the negative stuff, the resentment, the bitterness, but what about the good stuff? How much love do you let yourself feel? How much joy do you let yourself feel? How much passion do you let yourself feel? How much kindness and compassion and care? In the same way we sometimes avoid ourselves feeling the difficult stuff, when you block and numb yourself out to the difficult stuff, guess what? It becomes harder to feel the good stuff. Does that make sense? Okay, even if it doesn't, please say yes, because this is all I have. And I think sometimes we need to let more love in to allow ourselves to feel the depth of love. Sometimes too much love scares us. Sometimes too much joy, sometimes we don't know what to do with it. Can you expand your capacity to feel all of life? To feel the love, to feel the fear, to feel it all. Because the more that we can feel, the more alive we are. The more that energy moves through us, and the more aware and awakened we are, the better choices we make, and the more engaged and active we are in our lives. So the last thing I want to talk about is actually releasing it, because you feel it is important in terms of healing it, but you've got to get to a place where you're willing to release it to God and release it for good. David Hawkins was thinking about the question, how do we live a better life? And for many years, he was trying to figure it out, all kinds of modalities he was trying. And then he came to the conclusion, the most important way to improve your life is to learn to let go, to release the things that we're holding on to free ourselves from the hurt and the pain and the bitterness that we sometimes get trapped in. Many of us think if you want a better life, you got to add something. It's all about addition. Add a house, add more money, add this, add that. But you know what? A happier life sometimes is about subtraction. It's about, what do I need to let go? What do I need to release? Where do I need to free myself from something that isn't working? And letting go isn't easy for us, but it's important that we need to learn. This week I was reading an article called Forgive Us Our Trash Baskets, based on a child saying the Lord's Prayer when she said, forgive us our trash baskets as we forgive those who put trash in our baskets. And so the question is, what trash is in your basket? Because sometimes we're putting trash in our basket, and we're putting trash in our basket from 2 years ago. And months and weeks ago, we're filling up that sucker and we're not even emptying it. And the thing is, even when other people put trash in our basket, it's still our responsibility. We don't have to let them put trash in our basket. And so we need to learn to empty that, about how to release that. And we got to learn how to let go. So what in your life do you need to let go right now? What are you holding on to that isn't healthy for you? What is it time for you to release and liberate yourself from? And it could be resentment or bitterness or blame, but sometimes we might need to let go of control or let go of the need to be right or let go of some pain of the past, some mistake we made, some regret. Maybe we need to let go of a relationship that just isn't working. Maybe we need to let go of the judgment or the shame or the guilt or jealousy or whatever negative energies, feelings of unworthiness. They're all things I guarantee that every one of us needs to let go. And just the releasing and letting go of it begins to liberate and open us to feel more joy and feel more peace. You know, this whole idea that I think we got to let it go to God and let it go for good. And the whole idea of let it go to God, because when you give it to God, God will bring the healing and the peace. And let it go for good has two connotations. One is to let it go for good, as in for good permanently, but let it go for the good that you're denying yourself by holding on to it. Let go of the pain for peace. You know, let go of the anger for grace. Let go of the hate for joy. Let go of the lack for abundance. Let go of the shame for worthiness. Let go of the resentment for thankfulness. Let go of the fear for love. Because every time we hold on to these things, it's taking up room and energy and space that's blocking the way for the things that we really want. And as we let it go to God and let it go for good, it creates more room for good. We let go of the lesser and open a space for the greater. Sometimes we think letting go is a sign of weakness. But the truth is, you look at any great person in life, they had to let go of something big to achieve their level of success. Nelson Mandela would not have been the president of South Africa, and apartheid would not have ended if he was not able to let go of any bitterness and resentment for being wrongly imprisoned for 26 years. Oprah would not have reached the heights she did if she was not able to let go of the abuse that she went through. Where Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and we can go on and on and on. But anyone who's achieved something great had to let go of something. No matter how unfair or unpainful or unjust it was, letting go liberates. Letting go frees. Letting go opens us up to life and love and more joy and beauty and goodness. Life isn't easy. There are trials and tribulations. There are losses and there are pains. And the sea of emotions that we feel are up and down and high and low, and they're not always easy. But we could choose to let them weigh us down and cause strife, or we can help it liberate, lighten us, and lift us to a higher and better place. So this week, when it comes to our emotions, the question is, are you ready to just accept and not resist whatever emotions that you're feeling? Know they're good and important and there to help you. Number two, are you willing to feel it to heal it? And just to allow yourself to let that energy move through you, to breathe through it. And finally, are you willing to release it to God? Release it to God and release it for good, to open a space for more blessings. Every one of us wants a better life. The question is, are you ready to get your game on? And if you are, let's do our work on getting more emotionally fit. God bless you, everybody.